Hi there, my name's Camille Donegan and I'm Head of Immersive Learning at Adaptas and CEO of Immersive, which is the Association for Immersive Technologies in Ireland. I'm here today to talk to you about virtual reality training and the evolution that we are seeing, particularly with the advances of generative AI. So the impact of virtual reality for training has been well proven, particularly from Stanford University, who've been studying the impact since the 1980s. We've seen a variety of use cases from every vertical you might imagine, like healthcare, soft skills training that we're going to focus on today, safety training, military training. In fact, Stanford have come up with an acronym for where virtual reality is most effective in training, and that acronym is DICE. And DICE stands for dangerous, impossible, can't do it in the real world, counterproductive, doesn't make sense to do it in the real world, or expensive and rare. A great example of an expensive and rare use case is Walmart brought the Black Friday craziness to life in virtual reality to train their staff for that event. Through the studies at Stanford University and Meta and other research entities, we have a lot of stats of the proof that VR in training is incredibly engaging. Some of the statistics out there include that it's 27% more emotionally engaging than 2D video. You retain more knowledge than 2D video, 33% more. And VR learners are 150% more engaged during classes, a recent study from Meta and Stanford. And we've two distinct types of content in virtual reality training. So two different types of content that you can put into the headset. One is video. So we've always had video, the films that we watch, etc. But we have 180-degree cameras and 360-degree cameras for virtual reality. In Adaptas, we lean into embodiment. Again, this comes from the research that we follow at Stanford University at their virtual human interaction lab. The very first VR experience that I tried was an embodiment experience. And I was embodied in this male at a dinner party, and I could feel through nonverbal communication what he was feeling. I knew he was annoyed with his wife. I knew that he was looking very fondly at his young son, whose birthday it was, and I could feel in my body what this character was feeling. And VR has been dubbed the empathy-making machine for that reason. So we have video content, and then we have computer-generated content. And up until now, computer-generated content had to be used for interactivity. So if you want to program movement and interaction and speech interaction in a virtual environment, it had to happen with computer-generated graphics. And that's a little bit about the direction we're heading in this talk today. So here are some of the clients we've worked with at Adaptas. FBD Insurance was our very first Embody the Expert immersive video client. And we went on to win a national training award with the IITD for that work. And you can see a little bit of the capture process here. So we captured a customer service agent in the busy call center in FBD Insurance, not once but twice, because we built two scenarios for them. So the trainee experience in the very safe training room is that they put on the headset and they are transported to the very busy call center floor with all the atmospheric distractions, the board that they need to follow in terms of the calls and the waiting times of the calls, etc. They have to hit all the necessary compliance pieces, and in the scenario, it's a confidence building tool. They do succeed in getting a difficult sale across the line. So we leaned into using two 360 videos, but taking the content from the front 180 lens on the first camera that you can see in the image, and then the front lens on the back camera. So we used two cameras on a customized rig, and that's how we achieved the experience where you look down and you're in the body of the customer service agent. And we brought that methodology to work that we've done with National Broadband Ireland and more recently with the Restaurant and Hospitality SkillNet. So we've been leaning into the power of embodied immersive video at Adaptas for our clients and having great results. However, during COVID, we weren't able to do our usual filming process and working with crew and actors as we normally would. So we were leaning in at that point to computer-generated graphics, and we used a platform called Animotive from a company in Belfast called Retinize, and it enabled us to embody an avatar, so a cartoon character. I actually got to play all the characters, which was very, very fun, especially when I got to be the angry teacher who Dala believes is going to turn into a monster because they haven't done their homework. So in this experience, the Dala project, you're embodying Dala. Dala's a teenager suffering with anxiety. And this was a body of work that we did with CAMS, the Children Adolescent Mental Health Services in Galway, led by Niamh Moran. So the teenagers co-created remotely because of COVID. All of the scenarios, we were constantly back and forth about the aesthetics, the interaction, the metaphors, the scripting, the storyboarding. And on the back of that, we actually won a Health Technology Innovation Award for Most Collaborative Project. That piece is now on 650 VR headsets and being rolled out through Feroga, who have access to 80,000 young people across Ireland. So I'm here today to talk about how AI is impacting virtual reality training. There's a long journey really between AI and virtual reality. In fact, having been a VR producer myself for over 10 years, we have always used AI really, and a lot of the platforms and building tools that we would use would have leveraged AI always. However, since the advances of generative AI and the recent explosion and the hype cycle that we are currently in for AI, we're seeing some real benefits with the convergence of AI into virtual reality training. One great example is AI charged avatars. So this is when you're in a situation, you're in a scenario, and you're actually conversing with an avatar in real time and they can answer you back. And that's achieved through natural language processing. So you're able to interact with the characters. That character could be powered, say, by ChatGPT-4, and it feels quite realistic, albeit anybody who's interacted with ChatGPT-4, of course, there are some drawbacks. They do have a habit of repeating themselves, for example. Non-playable characters, or NPCs, so they're the characters that are automated, let's say, from games traditionally. That's where the term NPC comes from. In VR scenarios, often you'll have background characters, and that could be in like a work office environment or a healthcare situation, and if they are not AI charged, they might just be standing there in an idle animation state, looking a bit shifty. So now with AI, we can actually have those characters be much more meaningful. Another important factor to mention is we've always had the ability to track where a user is looking with virtual reality headsets. So that combined with AI is very interesting. So if I turn and look at a nurse, say, in a healthcare scenario and talk to her, we're getting to the point where that character will know that I'm looking at her and she will respond, as opposed to some of the other characters in the scene. That's going to be very interesting to see where that goes. And AI offers really amazing possibilities for localization. So if I write a scenario in English, it can be in real time translated to French, Spanish, German, any of the common languages. And worth mentioning that Údarás na Gaeltachta have actually just launched their Irish language LLM. So excited to see what we can do as a country with that. In virtual reality, when you have this very deep, knowledgeable, considered ability to understand user preferences, then an AI is like able to dynamically adjust content, visuals, and interaction based on what a user is doing, like what I described with the gaze interaction with a particular nurse in a scenario. that creates a much more immersive and believable experience for the trainee. And that's where we've always been trying to get to with these scenarios. So we're always working to make the user or the trainee feel as present as possible in the scene, as grounded as possible in the scene, and for the scenario playing out to be believable. At Adaptas, we come from a theatre, acting and role play background. So we're really interested to see how these evolutions will advance learning. Some examples of where AI can provide real-time guidance information or where there's added value. One example would be mixed reality. So I could have a character, and through a mixed reality headset, and what a mixed reality headset offers is I can turn on, it can be a virtual reality headset like the Quest 3 from Meta, and with a tap I can see this room, and I'm seeing it through high resolution color cameras, so it looks like I'm seeing the room, albeit through a camera feed. And then we can overlay any kind of content, so it could be for a safety experience. You might want to be able to walk around the room and find, say, the clues for an incident that has happened, or health and safety training for that physical space. So there's so many possibilities when you bring in mixed reality to work with the physical environment and then bring assets and content into that. And indeed, for role play training, you can have the real, rather than building a computer generated environment, you could use your real office. And then you have an AI powered avatar in conversation for training, and it feels very grounded and embodied because you're in the actual office that you work at. We have had deep metrics for the last 10 years in virtual reality. Some of that's based on the fact that where the user is looking and for how long. So we've been able to track dwell time and every interaction that you do. So if I pick this up, I can track that. If I drop it and pick it up and drop it and pick it up, I track that. So we can track every single interaction that happens in a virtual environment. And now with AI, we can really supercharge those metrics and get deeper and smarter metrics, which is going to produce more powerful learning experiences and better assessment of those learners' achievements. Something that's quite exciting, you might have seen the Meta Ray-Ban glasses. So when I have them in the US, this functionality is currently locked down in Europe because of the AI Act. But when I have them on in a restaurant in the US, I can say, hey Meta, look at this menu and tell me what are the gluten-free options on this menu. And like any good AI, it'll give it a deep and thorough look in a matter of milliseconds and come back to me in real-time answers. And that's all just through voice. So currently with the Meta Ray-Ban glasses, we don't have a visual display. It's all audio-based, and then this look at functionality, which is very, very powerful. It can also do real-time translation, back to the point in translation. So I can say, hey Meta, how do I say, where is the library in French? And it'll tell me, and then very quickly I can ask that to the person in front of me. So there's so many interesting possibilities that are just being enhanced and expedited because of AI. So we're moving towards no-code tools. For the last, the 10 years I've been in the industry anyway, we've been using the Unity game engine or the Unreal game engine primarily to build these scenarios. And they're game engines that have been around for a long time to build computer games. And a lot of the advances that have come with the technology are because of those game engines and the investment into games. So we're seeing a move to no-code tools where you don't need to be a Unity or an Unreal developer anymore. There are platforms that are being built to sit on top of Unity or Unreal. In fact, I mentioned one of them earlier when I talked about Animotive. So Animotive is a platform that's built on top of Unity. So I can work with that platform and I don't need to be a Unity developer. So we're seeing this similar movement for scenario building and role play training in relation to these AI-powered scenarios and avatars. So two companies that have been in the space for quite a long time, two UK companies, Body Swaps and Virtual Speech, are leaning into this, and I recently got to get a trial of both of their solutions and how they're leveraging AI. And it is very interesting. So in both scenarios, you have a scenario builder platform. So I can literally create my character, what age he or she is, some background information, you know, the scenario. I'll script the entire scenario. So I'm basically training the large language model with extra information that's very specific to our scenario. And then I can talk naturally. So one example was a debate situation. So I was with an AI-powered avatar and Body Swaps, and I was having a debate about whether you should prepare, you know, verbatim, let's say, for a job interview, or if you should go with the flow and focus much more on conversation and interaction. So I debated the side of you must have studied hard and have exactly all the questions and answers at your fingertips and be very scripted, you know. And then ChatGPT-4 was challenging me on all of that points, and it was quite interesting. And at the end of our debate, I did get some quite nice metrics around my eye contact, my body language, etc. And Virtual Speech are offering a similar scenario builder. So the interface is quite similar. Again, you're creating your characters, your situation, your scenario. So that's where the tech is currently at with quite advanced platforms that you can build your own scenarios. We are limited to what, say, ChatGPT-4 or Llama or any of the AI LLMs that are out at the moment can do. And as I mentioned earlier, sometimes they do tend to repeat themselves, and then obviously hallucination is a very valid point. We don't want the AI to go completely off script and make up things, right? Just like when an actor is doing a role play, they are very well trained to stay on book. And speaking of human role play, something we're exploring at Adaptas is the future of VR training using volumetric humans. So to create a volumetric human, I would go into a volumetric studio, which has multiple video cameras, and I'm being captured in 360, and a volumetric hologram can be produced of me from that. Then the next stage would be rigging. This is the same process for any 3D avatar. So you have to rig all of the joints. So you turn, well, you could turn a scan of me, for example, into a 3D model of me, right? And then once I'm programmable in that state, I can be programmed to say or do anything. And for us, that's really interesting because of our theatre background, our role play background, we do lean into working with real humans and the power that will bring to learning and training when those volumetric humans can be AI charged. We're also interested in exploring live actors embodying avatars remotely. So actors can be performing a live role play while they're in their bedroom and their client is in the US, for example. If you'd like to speak to us more about that, our email is info@adaptastraining.com. But for now, I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.